Good morning, Year 10. Today we're going to continue our work on arrays. So just a quick recap on what an array is. Using an array is a way of holding multiple pieces of information under one name. So previously, where I'd have to do maybe item 1 equals apples, item 2 equals bananas. What I can do is I can have a variable called items, a name called items, for example, and I can use square brackets and I can store multiple items under one name. So you can see if I run this and I put item 1, we get apples, item 2 gives us bananas, but items gives us both. And the way these are organized is apples is in position 0 and bananas is in position 1. So if I do items 0, you can see I can just get apples by itself. So one of the examples that we're going to use today is thinking about maybe online shopping. You've got your Amazon basket, maybe you've gone to an online shop, you've got your cart, and you want to add items to that cart. So one of the things that we can do for this is we'll call it basket, and we're going to have what's called a blank array. So here I have declared an empty array. So there's nothing in it, but we've got something called basket. Now, what I can do is I can add an item to that basket. And to do that, we use something called append. So we do basket.append, and then inside this append bit we say what we want to add. So for example, let's say I wanted to add apples to it. If I run that code, it will create the basket first and then it will add the items. And if I type in basket, you can see apples is there. If I want to add multiple items, so let's go with kiwi and melon. You can see now if I do basket, I've got 3 items in it. So what we can do is we can ask the user what item they want to add, and we can then append that to it. So instead of putting something in here, we can say item equals input, and I can ask the user to enter item. I'm going to put a backslash in just so it goes to a new line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the item, so append the item to the basket. So what will happen here is on line 1, the basket being created, it's an empty array. We're going to ask the user what they want to add in, and then we're going to add it. And then what I'm going to do here is print the basket. So you'll see here, enter the item. Again, let's put in apples. You can see apples is now in there. So what I can do now is I can loop this round for however many items I want to add. So let's say for argument's sake I want to add 5 items. I can say for I in range 5, and then what I do is I can indent each of these by pressing the tab key. So what happens now is it will ask me to enter the item, and let's go with apples, enter the item, let's go with kiwi, melon, grapes, and the final one we'll put in bananas. So we can see there's our 5 items, and we've stopped asking how many times we want. We've now stopped asking, to enter in an item. So this is for how many times we know an item needs to be added. We're now going to have a look at what if we don't know how many times an item needs to be added. So what I'm going to do now is take this, and rather than have this for I in range, I'm going to say item equals true. I'm going to say while item does not equal, I will put -1. I'm going to say item equals input. I'll say enter the item or type -1 to exit. So what happens now if I comment out, so I'm going to use 3 quotation marks here. Now if I run it, it will say enter the item or type -1. So we'll put in apples again. Let's put in kiwi, grapes, and then we'll do -1 and it ends. But one of the things we can see here is we've got this -1 at the end. We don't really want that to happen. So one of the things that we can do is we can change this round, so we can add an if statement in there. So we can say if item does not equal -1, then we'll add the item. And what will happen now is if I type in apples, you can see if I do -1 this time, -1 doesn't get added onto the end, because we're just going to make a quick check to see if they wanted to exit or not. So we've got 2 loops here. This one allows us to loop indefinitely, so however many times you want to, but we have to have a way of leaving the loop, which is why we have the -1. This one allows us to put in a number here, and that's how many times the item will be added. What I'd like you to do now is to go away and just try that, experiment with that code, create that code, get it working, make sure it is identical to what you've got on the screen here. Once that's done, come back and we will move on to the next task. Right, so hopefully you've given that a go. Now what we're going to look at is how we can look at the basket. So if we wanted to view the actual kind of basket itself. So in order to view the basket, what we can do is we can just print the basket. And what will happen is if I run this, let's type in apples, melon, kiwi again, type in -1, you can see the basket gets printed. I've also got that code up here, so we'll get rid of that. So this isn't the best way for us to actually see it. So what we can do is we can say for each item in basket, and we'll print each item. Now what you'll notice here is if I type in the same items, it prints them one by one. So we've got a nice list coming down. What we're going to do is just amend this a little bit, and we're going to say for I in range of the length of the basket. So the length of the basket is how many items are in it. So if I do length basket, you'll see there's 3, because there's 3 items in there. And this time, when I print each item, what will happen is it will just print out 0, 1. And what I'm going to do is just a bit of concatenation again. I'm going to say I want to print each item. I want to add that onto the full stop and a space, and then I'm going to add basket, and in square brackets I'm going to put each item. So have a look at this carefully. What happens is we're going to print the number, we're going to add a dot, and then we're going to go to the basket and get what's in that position. So what we should see is the number plus the item. So let's add in apples, kiwi, and melon. We'll put -1. That's my fault. Let's do a string there. Here we go. So try that again. apples, kiwi, melon, -1. So we know now what position these items are in. So this is how we can print each item in the list by itself. Give it a go. Once you've got that code working, come back and we'll move on to the next task. Okay, welcome back. So now you've got that working, let's just do a quick recap on the items that we've put in. And we can see this starts counting at 0. What we want to do is have that start at 1, because that's how we as humans would read the list normally. So we're just going to add a 1 to each item. And now if we run it, if we do apples, kiwi, melon, -1, you can see the 1 gets added to it. Add that to your one, come back, and then we'll move on to the next task. Great, so now we've got our numbering working correctly. What we're going to do is look at how we can remove an item. So to do this, we're going to use very similar code, very similar syntax to what we're using up here. So for this, we're going to go to item to remove equals true. And we're going to say while item to remove does not equal -1, item to remove equals input into item to remove or type -1 to exit, and we'll do our \n as well. So you can see very, very similar to what we've got up here already. In fact, the only thing that's changed is the variable name. So same thing, we have to say if item to remove does not equal -1, then we're going to say basket.remove item to remove. So again, the only difference here is we're changing the variable name, and the word remove and append are different. So what we're going to do is, if I run this, let's put in some fruit again. Let's do -1. We can see there's our list. Type an item to remove. Well, let's remove the key. We'll do -1. And then if I type basket here, you can see we've got the item is gone. So one of the things that we're going to do here is just to make this a bit more user friendly. And we can actually copy this code underneath here. And what I'm going to do is just use the tab key to indent that. So what's going to happen is it's going to print out the list first, and then it's going to show us what the items are in the list and which one we want to remove. It means that this one will duplicate first. So let me show you what happens if I type in melon, kiwi, you can see that's the first print statement, which is line 16 and 17, and then we've got it repeated here because we repeat the code here. We'll get rid of apples, we'll do -1, and you can see apples was removed here, and then we've stopped. So get your code working like that, make sure it's working okay. When you come back, we'll show you how we can neaten this code up. Okay, welcome back. So let's have a look now, I'd say, about neatening this code up. So for where we are at the minute, I'm actually going to get rid of the code that we had commented out here. And what I'm going to do is to create a menu type thing, so the user can decide on what they would like to do. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to create an option of what the user might like to do. So let's do we'll do menu, we'll do print And then in here, I'm going to do 3 quotation marks. I'm going to do 3 quotation marks here. And then what I can do is I can say 1, add item, 2, view basket, and 3, remove item. And if I just run that now, you'll see that option comes up for us to use a 1, 2, or 3. I'm then going to say choice equals input. I'm going to say enter choice, my \n. So now you'll see it's asking the user what they want to do, and it's waiting for what they'd like to do. So what we're going to use here is just a few if statements. So we're going to say if choice equals, and we have to use quotation marks here because the input always takes in strings, and this is a string. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this code. I'm going to use the tab key, which is the one above the caps lock, just to indent it once. So now what you'll see, if I run it and then press 1, that code will run. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my LF option. I'm going to say if choice equals 2, oh, wrong line, that'll have to go there, then this for loop is going to run. So you can see if I run that and press option 2, there's nothing for it to run, so it's moved on to the next bit of code. So what I'm going to do here then, I'm going to say LF choice equals 3, oh, and let's move those items in. So here we have our code. If I type in 3, we'll enter the item you want to remove or press -1, so we'll just do -1. So there's a few things that we can do here just as a quick check. 1, make sure that we've got the choice equals 1 to add an item, choice equals 2 to view the basket, choice equals 3 to remove an item. So make sure you've got that code working. Make sure you've got your basket bit, your choice, and those if statements. The code won't work correctly at the moment because the basket might be empty, so we can't remove an item or we can't view the items if the basket's empty. So once you've got that code working, we'll then look at how we can fix that issue. To check if the basket is empty, what we need to do is, again, we can check the length. So what we can say is, we can say if the length of the basket is 0, we can print basket empty. Else, and we can indent this again, so highlight it and just indent it. So now if I run that and press option 2, it'll say basket empty because there's nothing in there. So what I can do now is do the same thing. So what I can do is I'm going to take that code and I'm going to pop it here. So I'm going to say if the length of the basket is 0, print basket empty. Else, and again this is important, we're going to highlight everything, press the tab key and just indent it once. So if I run it now and I want to do 3, it says basket empty. So that's how we can check if the basket is empty before we print anything or before we try and remove anything. In a moment, you're going to come back and we're going to show you how to get this to loop all the way through them. So So get that working, make sure it's working okay, and we'll move on to the next task. So welcome back, hopefully you've got that working now. We're going to do the final part of today, which is to get this to loop continuously. So at the moment, if we say the basket's empty, it doesn't loop background. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to create a loop. Okay, so we're going to say, let's do, we'll just say while, lowercase. So we say while true, and we will literally highlight everything and indent it. So everything's been indented once. We'll run it now. So if I do 2 to view basket, it says basket empty, and then we're back to the main code. It's looped around. So if I say remove an item, it's empty. I can add an item. So let's go with apples. I'll do -1, and you can see I'm back to the main item now. 2, it showed me what's in the basket. 3, I can remove an item. So let's remove apples and do -1, and we're back to the main bit. So there's a continuous loop now on this program where it will just loop round and round and round and round and round. What we will look at next is how do we stop this continuous loop so the user can end the program properly. So in order to end this main loop, all we do is at the bottom, and we need to dedent quite a bit. So you'll notice that these lines tell us what the indentation is. So we want to indent 1 over from the main, so in line with this print statement. So down here, I'm going to tab once. You can see I'm on the second line in. This is very important. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if the user wants to exit. So I'm going to say exit equals input, and I'll say, let's do type -1 to exit program, and I'll say if exit does equal -1, so if it equals -1, underneath then we're going to type the word break. It's in lowercase, sorry. So what will happen is if we run the code, see I type in 2 empty basket, it's got, if we want to empty the program, we just type -1, and you can see the program has ended. We're just going to change this. It will say type -1 to program or enter to continue. Just make that a little bit easier. So this is how we can break the code in terms of break the loop, exit the loop, so the program can end properly. So add this bit to your code, and that's it. Make sure your code's working fine. You can begin to add items to a basket, remove items from the basket, view the basket, play back with the code, and make sure you're kind of happy and understand exactly what it's doing.